Okay, does that golf look like you? Does that shot, that swing look too familiar? Well, if it does, this video is going to help you because I'm going to show you how you can improve all of the faults that that golfer had just there. So, what was that golfer doing wrong? Did you spot the faults? I mean, certainly it was a terrible shot and he's probably never going to see that golf ball again. But did you spot or could you recognise just what he was doing wrong? Well, that's what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to do it on this beautiful 18th hole here at Mapei Golf and Country Club in Portugal. Portugal's #1 golf course. So, you could well be holding yourself back from playing your best golf and hitting poorer shots that you don't need to hit if you're trying to simply turn in the backswing. The backswing isn't a turn, unfortunately, and if you do make a turn, we run into lots of issues. Let me show you what would happen. I'm not going to use the golf club for this. What would happen if I had the thought process or the instruction of, from here, making a turn? Well, watch what happens. Notice how my head has moved significantly off the golf ball. And then when we look at the down the line camera, notice how there's not really much of an angle through my shoulders, not really tilted over the golf ball. So this would be a golfer making a turn. Now, as you can probably see, that doesn't look quite right. It's probably difficult to play golf from there, and that's why that golfer at the start, who wasn't me, really struggled and didn't hit a great shot. So what do we have to do? Well, it really starts on this lead shoulder, understanding the movement of that, and then understanding how the lower body facilitates that movement. If I took my address to this golf ball again, this lead shoulder should be moving down and away from the target. Let me show what that would look like. The lead shoulder, and you can use the end of the golf club as the reference, should be moving down and behind the golf ball. Down and behind the golf ball. That's a very, very different movement to this one. This is simply that turn. How we know the difference is, notice on the poor one when I just simply try to turn, notice where my upper body faces. It faces down towards the ground still. On that better one, notice how my upper body faces a lot more out towards that camera, not so much down towards the ground. That's the key movement. Now, if we want the upper body to work better, which we do in many cases, we have to really look at what the lower body is doing, because very often the lower body, if that's moving incorrectly, is causing those poor movements in the upper body. So we're going to flip this slightly. We're now going to look at the lower body. Let me take my address to this golf ball. And I want us to use this end of the alignment stick as a reference for my trail hip. And I'm pretty sure we'll all agree that when I take my address, my trail foot is not going to move in this golf swing. It's not going to change its position. But what would happen is, as I started to rotate my hips, would we see this alignment stick move closer or further away than that trail foot? Well, as I start to rotate, we can see the end of the alignment stick is moving up and behind me. And I think we would agree that it's moving away from that trail foot. So my right hip, my trail hip, is moving further away from my foot. So if I've got flex in my leg at address, which I should do, and I'm sure you all have, if we make the correct move into our hips and this alignment stick moves further from that foot, that leg should start to loosen flex. Might not straighten, and probably would never want to see it straighten, but it should start to loosen flex. And the more that you rotate the hips, the more flex that should start to lose. Such an important move. And we can't really get away from that. It's just physics. If the hip is moving away from your foot, something has to get longer, and the leg is what's getting longer. So watch what happens if I make a bigger pivot. Notice how there's an angle through this alignment stick. That angle through the alignment stick is really important because that angle is going to help me move my upper body correctly. What is going to happen all too often is when this knee doesn't move, when this hip doesn't move, we don't create the angle, and then this shoulder tends to want to stay too high. We don't get the angle, and we see the head moving off the golf ball. If we want this shoulder to move down and behind the golf ball, we have to allow that to happen with what the lower body is doing. So here's the little exercise I want you to do. Take this club, pop it across your shoulders, And I want you to make a pivot where your focus is lead shoulder down and behind the golf ball. Trail hip goes up and behind you. Lead shoulder, trail hip, if they both work correctly, I can make this beautiful backswing pivot where my head is nice and still. I'm staying very much over the ball and I'm wound up ready to make this perfect downswing. If I lock the knee, if I lock the hip, then I'm almost forced into this turning movement, which we know, we've explained, is really not going to help your golf. So, do a couple of those, maybe use a mirror or a reflection to get that. Bring the golf club in and do the same thing. But this time, I'm going to do a little pause before I hit it. So lead shoulder down, trail hip back and up. And then we go through. It's a great way for me to practice. That little pause is brilliant, just helps me, gives me a bit of time to recognize and feel what I'm trying to do. And that's really important as I start to, implement those changes into my golf swing. The next stage will be just to add a bit of speed. So we just take an address, we're looking for the same movements, but this time we're looking for a little bit more speed in there. Backswing pivot, it's so important. Get it wrong, it's going to be really difficult to deliver that club to the ball. You're going to hit poor strikes, you're going to lose lots of balls, you're going to lose distance, all those things that we really don't want to do. So make sure that lead shoulder is moving correctly and make sure the lower body is facilitating that movement. It's massively going to help your golf game. Thanks for watching. Usual stuff is down below. We'll see you back here again soon.